more biblical wealth principles. We're, we're doing this course because Christians are living small. Now, I am a conservative Baptist preacher. I do not condone or succumb to everything that is called Christian out there. Most of it is a bunch of garbage. Most of them are false prophets. Most of them are doing it the wrong way. Most of them are wearing ripped jeans and t-shirts and rock and roll music, and women are wearing seductive clothing. Okay, I got no part of that. It's all feel good and emotional. It's a bunch of garbage. But the Bible is still the same. God is still the same. God doesn't change. His principles are still the same. And Christianity as a whole has been living small in the money world, in the abundance world. They've got this mentality that piety, that being poor is piety, and being wealthy is wicked. I'm probably going to introduce all my biblical wealth teachings with a little bit of discourse like this to debunk the fact that being poor is piety and being wealthy is wicked. Those are anti-Bible concepts. Came from the Catholic Church. God's real church has never been part of the Protestant movement. God's church has always been alive and well on this planet. Catholics got it from Greek and Roman mythology. We're just not going to subscribe to that crap. I try to be very selective in my language. It's a bunch of garbage, and I want to free God's people a little bit as He has freed me. So just a few biblical principles tonight out of Proverbs 28. Proverbs 28:8 says, "He that by usury and unjust gain increaseth his substance, he shall gather it for him that will pity the poor." Charging interest in an unjust manner. Let's read it again. That's what usury means. He that by usury and unjust gain. So he's using interest and he's using unjust gain. There's nothing wrong with interest per se, but it can be used in a wrong way, which is what we're talking about here. In an unjust manner, increaseth his substance. Okay, if a man does this, he will increase his substance. Okay, and so that's part and parcel to why we recognize all the wicked people in the world that are wealthy. Just because they're wealthy don't mean they're wicked. A lot of them are wicked, a lot of them are not. God's people have subscribed to this idea. That's one of the problems. And the other problem is they're just lazy. They don't want to do the work. God has called them to something. He's put a desire in them. They know they want more. They just won't pursue it. They just won't cultivate the ground. They just won't dig it up. They just won't sow the seed. They won't wait. They can't wait. And so they just give into this American dream. Go get a 9-to-5 job, barely make it, make 40,000, 50,000, maybe 60,000. You shoot even 100,000 a year you might make. Work for a company 20, 30, 40 years. Get some kind of retirement. That's not what God wants for His people. But a man who does this, he'll get his substance. But then the end verse says, he'll gather it for him that will pity the poor. Okay, God's keeping an account. Okay, and this principle of getting our wealth as Christians and our understanding of wealth, and even the wealth itself, that if God's people will do right in these areas, we will get the benefit of what these wicked people are doing. That concept is taught in Ecclesiastes. Okay? That's what's going to happen. That's just a biblical principle. That's a biblical business wealth principle. Let's look at another one. Verse 19. He that tilleth his land shall have plenty of bread, but he that followeth after vain persons shall have poverty enough. Okay? This is not saying that you have to be a farmer, but we need to understand the concept of when God gave us his word and what he says in his word and how he says it, and knowing that in the process of time, God did all this. There's no accident that God sent his son on this earth during that time. Not during our time, but during that time, that agricultural time over 2,000 years ago. He didn't send him during our time and our technological advances. Okay? So we can take understanding and truth from agricultural references. And a caveat, I think you'll be a whole lot better off, and we as a people would be better off if we learned to get a little piece of land and start working the land. Be a farmer, even if it's at a small scale. There's something biblical, right, and wholesome about living that kind of life. Don't mean you disregard whatever current business you're doing, but there's something to that. I believe God wants his people to have that in their life. It's a biblical concept, but we can apply it to our situation. Okay? You work it. You work the land. Okay? And it takes time. If you're working the land, it takes time. Okay? When you're starting out, you're taking over a piece of land that's got a bunch of weeds in it. It's got a bunch of rocks. You got to work it. You got to plow it. It takes time. You got to plow it more than once. You got to plow it several times. You got to bend over and pull weeds. You got to bend over and throw rocks. Okay? You got to fertilize it somehow. You got to throw some compost on it. You got to throw some manure on it. You got to throw some lime or sawdust. There's all kinds of ways you can fertilize the land, but it takes time just to do that part. Okay, and then you got to buy the seed. And then you got to plant the seed. And guess what? The day you plant the seed, guess what's not going to be there the next morning? A harvest. Guess what's not going to be there a month from then? 2 months, 3 months, maybe 4 months. You'll start seeing a little sprout. Day after day, week after week, month after month, you've got to work, you've got to wait. God's got a calling on your life, and he expects you to work it. He's not going to make you work it. You're going to have to work it. And you're going to have to wait. And that's where most people, that's where most Christians just quit. They don't want to wait. They don't want to work. They don't want to put in the extra time. I was like that for years. It's a biblical principle. And God has always, in his scriptures, always had his people surrounded with wealth and abundance. Yeah, he sure did. The poor, he said, you're always going to have with you, but he didn't say we had to be poor. And he expects his people to help the poor. If we poor, how are we going to help the poor? We got to have money. You need to change your mindset. But if you don't want to till the ground, you just want to follow after vain persons. You just want to follow the next thing. You just want to follow the next phenomenon. You just want to follow the next shiny object, and you can't stay committed to anything. Then you're just going to jump from one hole to the next. You're going to rabbit jump. You're going to just chase the next squirrel. You're just going to chase everything. Pick something. God's told you what it is, and stay with it. And be committed in your mind that you're playing the long game. You're playing the long game. And I encourage people to commit to at least 2 years. Daily working, daily grinding, daily writing, daily studying, daily creating, day by day, storing up your resources for at least 2 years. If all you're going to do is follow the vain persons, you're just going to be poor. He's going to be poor all the time. It's going to be poor. I'll be poor. God don't want his people to be poor. One more. He that hasteth to be rich hath an evil eye, and considereth not that poverty shall come upon him. Hasteth to be rich. I mean, listen, we've all been there. We want money. We want it now. We bought into this American lie. We're cogs in the wheel, and we're just punching a clock. And we get to the point where we're tired of that, and we're looking for something to get rich quick on. We've all dealt with it, but there's a group of people out there, that's all they ever do. They're always looking for the quick fix. They're always looking for the easy way. They're always looking for get rich quick. And it happens sometimes, but that's not the way of the world. That's not how the world turns around. That's not how God made it. He that hasteth to be rich hath an evil eye. If that's how you are motivated, looking for the quickest way to get rich, and not put the work in, not put the time in, that comes from an evil heart, comes from an evil eye. And he doesn't even consider that poverty is going to overtake him. And he'll do something like this for years. Anyway, biblical wealth principles. And I'm learning to make better video content, because right now I'm not looking at the camera. See, now I'm looking at the camera, so now you're looking probably right at my eye. But right now I'm looking at myself, because that's a habit. So I don't know, you can tell me if you think it looks good or it doesn't look good, but I'm just putting out this free content to help you, to guide you, to direct you. And I hope it helps. I know it will help if you apply it. Like and subscribe, comment if you want to move further in other directions with some of our programs. But in the meantime, keep your eyes on Him.